the more you tell the story, the less power it has over you,
Mm.
because you don't have that emotional attachment to it anymore. You become an observer of that story.
We all have a story, but real power comes when we learn to share it from a place of truth instead of fear. Today's guest, Sarah Lloyd, lived that journey herself. After 27 years in media and the PR world, she walked away from her global corporate role in 2017 to create a life with more balance, purpose, and freedom. She founded her own agency, ISPR, where she now works with changemakers, rebels, female entrepreneurs, mystics, energy healers, and authors, helping them to share their message with confidence and authenticity. Sarah is also an energy healer, award winning PR expert, podcaster, speaker, and author of multiple books. Her own story has been featured in Grazier, I should say, Primer, Daily Mail, Soul and Spirit, and she's spoken on global stages about the power of PR and storytelling. But what makes her work so special is the heart she brings to it, weaving healing into communication and teaching people how to let go of old stories that no longer serve them. Sarah, welcome to Positive Vibes.
I'm honored to be here. It doesn't even sound like me. That's what's really funny.
It's all you. It's all you, Sarah. Take it all in. Just wear it all. So, Sarah, can you take us back to 2017? What was happening in your life that made you walk away from your corporate career that you've built for nearly 3 decades?
Yeah. So 2017. Wow, it feels like a long time ago now.
Mm,
So I at the time I had been suffering with, and I didn't appreciate this at the time, I had been suffering with postnatal depression.
mm,
My daughters were 2.5 years and 6 months, respectively. And I mean, my whole life was all about my career. I grew up reading
mm,
Jackie Collins books, and it was all about the power dressing and having the career, and kids didn't even really factor. And then I met this
mm,
guy, and it was kind of, then that all changed.
mm,
But I was later to life having children, so I was in my late 30s when I had my girls.
mhm,
um had a career in communications. I'd worked my way up the corporate ladder. I kind of got to that point of my career where I was like, oh, this is it, this is where I'm going to stay, and it's amazing. And then I had children.
yeah.
uh, and it's kind of, there's lots of different things that were happening at that time. So I'd gone back to work with my first daughter. I'd negotiated a 4-day work, 5 days into 4 working weeks. So I had Fridays off with her, and it was all working really nicely. And then I had my second daughter, and then everything just changed. The postnatal depression came back with a
Mm,
vengeance. Having 2 children, working kind of a global role I was working with Australia, I was working with the US, and I was focusing on Europe as well. So I was kind of spread across the world, and then having to deal with children. So I'd be picking them
mm,
up from nursery, shoving them into bed at sort of 7 o'clock at night, kind of just desperate to get back on my calls because I had calls with the boss.
yeah.
So it all was very, because PR is quite a fast paced industry. So it's all very
Mm,
fast paced. And I just couldn't do it. I just got to the point where I was like, I just can't do this anymore.
mm,
Can't do it. It was just impossible. I couldn't work at the pace that I was setting myself. I couldn't be the mum that I wanted to be, and
mm,
I couldn't be the wife either, because after working the hours that I was working, plus dealing with the children and then trying to kind of connect with them, I mean, the sad thing was is that it was, what was really killing me is that they seemed to have a better relationship with my mum and
Mm.
the nursery teachers, and that made me
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I'm sure
so
there's,
all that was happening.
yeah. Yeah, that's a lot that was happening, and I'm sure there's a lot of listeners out there that can resonate with what you're saying. Trying to do it all with all those demands on top of you, and then to have postnatal depression on top of that, is tenfold. So I'm sure there's regardless what career or what role they're in, managing that demand is challenging, let alone to also have postnatal depression on top of that. So, what did it feel like for you to step away from the safe path of that corporate career? But it doesn't sound like it was all that safe. It sounds like it was more stressful and demanding for you to step into your own.
I think, well, I mean, what was happening at the time was, the children had really kind of shook up my everything. I feel like
Mm.
I call postnatal depression kind of a splintering. When you have
Hmm.
children, there is this, there's, the things that you no longer need to be let go of. And that was something that was really happening. And I was resisting it. I'm being
Mm.
completely honest. I was in total resistance. I thought I could do everything because
Yeah.
there's this whole societal conditioning that says you can do it all and you must do it all. And there were women in the business that I was working in who seemed to just have their shit together, and I just couldn't. And at the time as well, I wanted to heal myself,
Mm.
because after having my eldest, I went to the doctors and they put me on antidepressants, and I just stopped feeling altogether. So
Mm.
I just felt numb, and it was the only way I could get
Yeah.
through things. And I didn't want that for myself. And at the time, I kind of tripped into, I found this author called Rebecca Campbell, who is Australian,
Hmm.
and she wrote this book, The Light is the New Black.
Mm.
And yeah, it just made me think, right, I devoured this book, and it
Yeah.
just spoke to me and made me realize there was another way, there was another path. And before I had children, before my career, I was quite spiritually minded. I'd
Yeah.
have crystals in the bedroom. Have imaginary friends and all of those things. And all of that shut down for years. And
Mm.
then this having children, finding this book, having this experience just opened everything up. And I
Mm.
was visited by angels. I then started exploring Reiki and energy healing.
Mm.
And this was all happening whilst the storm of postnatal depression was happening. So this was
Yeah.
all in parallel. And what really, I mean, there was a point where I was on a business trip in Amsterdam, and I was reading the book, and Rebecca put out some kind of marketing around a new retreat that she was running, because I'd done a lot of her online
Mm.
courses that she was running, and she was running a retreat to Glastonbury,
Oh.
and I immediately thought I need to be on that,
Mm.
and didn't even think about it, went and booked it. And then I phoned my husband. I was like, kind of did something. I've just booked myself to go on a retreat. It's like, we've got two small children, and I'm telling him I'm off for a week. And he was like, you need to go. You need to be on that retreat,
Mm.
and you need to put yourself first.
Yeah.
And that was the crunch point for me. I
Mm.
met 20 women. I sat in Glastonbury. It wasn't even really who was leading the retreat. It was about the experience of really
Mm.
leaning into the feminine energy,
Yeah.
because I'd never done that before.
Mm.
Um, and it made me look at everything differently. And I came back from that retreat, and I was, seeing spirit and feeling energy, and
Mm.
things were really heightening around that aspect of things. And at the same time, my boss left, and I had a new boss coming in, and they were restructuring the business. And they gave me this amazing job. I was global head of thought leadership, which is basically storytelling at a corporate
Mm.
level. But they didn't want to tell stories. They wanted to focus on selling products. So they then removed that role.
Mm.
And I was given the option to take a sidestep into marketing or to take redundancy. And at the time, I mean, this was like 4 or 5 months after the retreat. I feel like I kind of
Mm.
manifested that, because I was laying there in Glastonbury going, what can I do with all the tools that I've learned over the last 25 years? How can I apply that? How
Mm.
can I use that? Can you give
Yeah.
me a sign or something?
Yeah.
And then basically my boss was like, we don't need you doing your job anymore. You can either do this or you can leave. And I was, yeah, no brainer.
Mm.
I'm leaving.
Yeah. Well,
So
you asked for it, didn't you? So yeah,
I
listeners,
think so.
always be careful what you ask for because it does deliver in a way, but sometimes a bit of a shock sometimes. Yeah. So looking back through all your healing and your connection with finding the book, getting you to the retreat, what was the most liberating moment in that transition for you?
The most liberating moment
Mm.
was being in a space with other women that
Mm.
were not in competition, that were not,
Yeah.
you know, stamping on you, that were in complete loving kindness, in that compassionate
Yeah.
energy. I'd never experienced, it's weird, I've never experienced that before.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful when you find that and how you can hold space for each other, and yeah, it's a gorgeous place and to feel and experience. So I can resonate with you on that one, and I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that can also resonate, and other listeners that probably want to, get that sensation and that feeling as well. So you call yourself a storyteller. Why are stories so powerful in healing and also in business?
I think we are, I guess the bottom line is we are brought up on stories are what make us who we are,
Mm.
whether they are stories that we've learnt from our parents, or they are stories that we've picked up from our friends, from school, from external sources. We're made up of stories.
Yeah.
And what I found since I've kind of hit midlife is I'm spending a lot of time unraveling those
Mm.
stories and clearing those stories, because there are a lot of stories that we adopt in childhood,
Yeah.
that hold us back. You know,
Mm.
the teacher that told us we weren't very good at writing,
Hmm.
the friend that told us that we shouldn't wear that. You know, there are a lot of stories that play out until
Mm.
we recognize them for what they are, not
Yeah.
true, and let go of them.
Yeah.
So the work that I do is not only, I mean, I've always worked in PR. It's always been about creating stories, positive stories about businesses and brands and
Mm.
products and services. We create those stories so that people will go and buy those products, services, etc. Why shouldn't we use the magic of storytelling to unravel some of those things too?
Yeah.
So I see, like, it's such an amazing thing. I mean, as kids as well, you know, we were brought up on Cinderella and the Ugly
Mm.
Sisters. You know, how many damsels in distress, you know.
Mhm.
It's an amazing opportunity to create a new narrative,
Yeah.
and I think we're doing it all the time.
Mm. Absolutely. So, how has sharing your story shifted your life and opened new opportunities?
um it's interesting because the more I share my story, the more amazing people come to work
Yeah.
with me to do their PR. But the beautiful thing about that is that often the people that are coming for me to help them to get their stories out there are
Yeah.
often the stories I need to hear personally.
Yeah.
So there's always this beautiful kind of medicine that we're
Mm.
giving each other, this like
Yeah.
beautiful exchange. I mean, I've got the functional kind of processes of getting people out there, but also I love
Mm.
to be able to give people a space to share stories that may not ever see the light of day, but need to be held and shifted and let go so they can move to the next story that needs to be shared and amplified.
Mm, yeah, and I'm just touching base on what you said in regards to, you're healing from each other, and it's a story for you to that you needed to hear. So for your healing as well, I'm a true believer of that connection of people that come together. There's always a win-win for each other, in that space if it's truly about that unconditional love and healing. Yeah. So, what advice do you give someone who's feeling scared or unsure about sharing their truth?
Well, I guess the biggest thing that I come up against is my story isn't that important, or my story
Mm,
isn't interesting.
yeah.
And, everybody's story is interesting. Everybody's story is important. Um, and even just sharing it with one person, you don't know whose life you're changing. And I think that again is a societal conditioning that our stories must go far and wide, and that's how we're going to
Mm,
change the world. But actually, what I've found is just sharing a story with one other person. You can change their whole world, their
mm-hmm,
whole lineage, their whole timeline. That's
mm-hmm.
how we're shifting it, not
Yeah.
just in the linear way, but in the cyclical way as well.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. So I think that's one thing that I would say is, like, don't get caught on, just because it's one person. It's one person, and you're
Mm,
changing their
yeah. And
um
and yeah, and just on that, by changing their life, that ripple effect is they're going to go on and change someone else's life. So that's the power of that one person. That's all it takes to get, the butterfly effect going. Yeah. Yeah.
100%. I mean, there are, it is great to share it with more people, and that's what PR is all about. You share one
Mm,
story with a newspaper that has 250,000 readers, amazing,
mm,
but you've only shared it once.
yeah.
And that's what I love about PR as well, is that you're not constantly churning it out. You're
Mm,
speaking to one person and they do the work. The
yeah.
network of readers will, the people that need to see those stories will see them when they're supposed to.
Yeah.
And I think as well, you know, some people might like this or might not, but when you're in the media, it doesn't go away. That's, I guess there is that element of, I teach people how to show up from a place of power. So
Yeah.
whatever they're saying, they're speaking their truth, and they're speaking from there isn't any need to feel shame around their story. So that's another thing
Mm,
that I kind of speak into, is the shame piece, because we've all felt shame
yeah.
in our lives. And that's
Yeah.
how, when we face shame, it disappears, and it brings through freedom, and it enables us to
Mm,
do things we may never have ever dreamed of doing.
yeah. It sounds amazing, the work that you do. And just on that, you talk about letting go of stories that no longer serve us. What does that really look like in real life?
I think I think everybody is different, but I think the way that I have experienced this is that the more you tell the story, the less power it has over you,
Mm,
because it's not, you don't have that an emotional attachment to it anymore. You become an observer of that story. So perhaps, like, going back to the story I shared around the postnatal depression, about
mm,
5 years ago, I couldn't have spoken about that without getting upset. But
mm,
now it's, well, that happened. I'm an observer of that. It isn't who I am. It is part of my journey. And I think that's the thing that I've also realized, is sometimes there's stories that are still very raw, and still, we
mm.
still have emotion attached to them. And often they're not the ones we should be sharing, because we're still in the wound, if you like. We're still bleeding. It's
Yeah.
like when you can kind of speak about something and it doesn't have that charge anymore,
Mm,
that's where the power truly lies. But I think you have to share that to get
mm.
there. Time is a great healer. Speaking about it is a great
Yeah.
healer. It's one of those things. I think the more
Yeah.
we talk about this stuff, the less power it has over us.
Yeah. So you mentioned about the story about your postnatal depression. Are you able to share another example of a time when shedding an old story brought you freedom?
Yeah, I mean, I had, so even 2 years ago, I hit perimenopause,
Mm.
and for about a year I flopped about. I didn't really know what I was doing.
I'm hearing you.
um,
I'm hearing you.
but I think as well, like again, I got stuck in that
Mm.
story of perimenopause and brain fog, and we're not supposed
Mm.
to function, and it's going to be difficult, and it's hard, and we need this. And I got so caught up in reading about it, I started to create the stories myself, and I started to
Mm.
believe the stories. And I basically created a barrier. I stopped myself from doing anything because I thought that's what I needed to do. But I mean,
Mm.
to be honest, I shed a lot of business, a lot of my clients, a lot of my business kind of took a rest, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
And it enabled me to then come back stronger. It enabled me to rethink how I wanted to show up, what I was here for, what I wanted to work on, who I wanted to serve. So
Mm.
the gift in kind of like believing that narrative and that labeling, the
Yeah.
negative stuff, um, did give me a space to sit in the void to figure out what I really wanted to do for the next however many years.
Mm.
Um, and it's interesting because I've spoken to a few women who have been in a similar situation where they go, okay, well, I feel like I'm going mad, and
Mm.
I can't, I'm tired, I'm this, I'm
Yeah.
that. And it's like, it's that piece around the language.
Mm-hmm.
I think women, we tell ourselves these things, and like I'm noticing it even more so with my husband and my children. It's like if we keep telling ourselves we're tired, of course we're going to be tired because we're
Exactly.
manifesting. It's like why would we? Yeah, so again, it's the power of the story, it's the power of the words. It's like the more we speak positively to ourselves, the more we talk about ourselves in a more, we can do this more stretch mindset, the
Yeah.
more success we're going to see. And I never really truly understood that until about 2 years ago,
Mm.
until this all happened. And I was like, oh, I'm believing that I've got ADHD and I've got
Mm.
perimenopause. Therefore, I've got all these things that are going to stop me from doing what I want to do. And I let it happen. But now I'm aware of it and I'm speaking to people about it. Yeah,
Mm.
I mean, from time to time, my body doesn't want to do the things I want it to do, but I now know how to re-energize myself from
Yeah.
eating well and taking time out. And yeah, so
Mm. Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, it is still, there's probably a little bit of a twinge of emotion around that because
Mm.
it's still something that's present, but
Yeah.
I'm not letting it define who I am.
Yeah, and you're so right in regards to storytelling or us telling, saying different phrases or words around us. It's very powerful of that reinforcing to what we believe, and changing that mindset really does change the way you live. So, how do you help others just on that reframe their story so they feel empowered instead of stuck?
I get them to tell me their story.
Mm.
And I give them the space to just, whatever wants to come up, just share. And I'll prompt them a bit like the podcast.
Mm.
I would just give them that space. I call it alchemy in action. So
Yeah.
I'll ask a series of questions. We'll share the stories, and then what I then do is reflect back what I've received to see
Yeah.
how they feel. Because again, like ideas if there's stories that they don't like the look of that I've reflected back to them, then they're clearly stories that are still still playing out
Mm.
in their that need healing. And there's also other stories that feel good, and often they come to me in a PR perspective.
Yeah.
So they want to be, media opportunities will come in alignment with those stories.
Yeah.
So I feel like the universe is going, well, yeah, we need to hear about this.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Yeah. So you also weave energy healing into your PR work. How do those two worlds come together?
it was completely by accident because I went off and trained to be an energy healer and thought, yeah, that's it. I'm going to
Yeah.
go and do the Reiki and that'll be
Yep.
me and I can ditch PR. But what actually happened was I hired a space and I was all set to do that, but I had crickets. No one arrived. No one wanted to do Reiki. But
Yeah.
what did happen is a lot of spiritual business owners came to me wanting PR, wanting to be seen.
Mm.
And they appreciated the fact that I do work with energy. I'll
Yeah.
pull cards, like we'll work with the energy of their business, we'll work with star charts if that's what they want. Um, yeah, it's just like leaning into like being very clear about our energy and how they want to be
Mm.
seen. So
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah. So why do you believe sharing a story from a place of healing feels so different from sharing it from a place of pain?
I I would always acknowledge the pain, but from a
Mm.
place of power. So, take my story, the postnatal depression. Yes, that
Mm.
was a painful time. It was, it was at the time very painful to navigate. But what I see on the other side is that I was able to then embark on my own journey of
Mm.
healing. I, through understanding that postnatal depression
Mm.
diagnosis, my mum had it, my nan had it.
Yeah.
It was as an ancestral thing, and I kind of want to break. I want to break that cycle so my children
Mm.
don't have to go through that. And I think that's the thing. It's like speaking into it helps clear those things that could hold us back. And I've totally lost track of the question now.
Yeah, right. It was really asking around why healing feels so different from a place of healing rather than a place of pain, sharing
Yeah,
from a
so
place of pain. Mm.
I have a saying called, own your story, warts and all. And
Yeah,
it's about, leaning into the shadows.
yeah.
Because that's where the power is. That's where our gold sits, actually. So,
Hmm.
the gold for me was unearthing this postnatal depression, which is now clearing energetically through my um, feminine line.
Yeah,
Um, and I think as well, empowering other people to talk about postnatal depression in
yeah,
lots of different ways. It's not just flopping around on the floor. I went into hyperfunction mode. I went completely the other way and
yeah.
threw myself into work and shut down and didn't feel. And, it's not, I guess these mental disorders show up differently for people.
Mm.
So I think the more we talk about our own experiences, there will be other people that feel the same in their bodies, but they would have had a different experience. And
Yeah.
that's why everybody's story is important, because I think, so, I mean, I shared my story at the time with a friend who'd had postnatal depression, and she said, you sound like you've got postnatal depression. You should probably go and see someone. And I didn't for a bit. And then she said, how about going to my energy healer? She might
Mm.
give you a steer. And that's where I found out that it was something I was carrying
Hmm.
and it needed to be cleared. And when I cleared it and learned how to clear my own energy field, it was just so powerful. And now I do that on my kids. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, that's a true gift for you doing it on your kids. Yeah, and it's great that you had a friend that actually could, recognize that in you and direct you to someone that could help you. So, can you share a transformation that you've witnessed in someone and that finally owns and shares their own story?
I guess I've witnessed so many. It's hard
Mm.
to, there is often when so I have a podcast as well, and people
Hmm.
come on and share their stories from pain to power
Yeah.
effectively around their journeys. And there was one particular person, she's not been on my podcast, but I did work with her on some of her PR. She wrote a book around her childhood journey. She accidentally injured or killed a childhood friend playing javelin, and this was like
Oh,
50 years ago.
dear.
So she wrote the book about it, and she had
Mm.
a horrendous experience with the media where she shared the story with the media, and it was a bit
Mm.
of a witch hunt, to be fair. um but what happened after that was the story went out, and the family of the child who died got in touch.
Wow.
This woman was in her 50s. This happened when she was 15, so it's what, 40 years ago, 30 years ago.
Mm.
And the parents got in touch, and she'd been on this big healing journey to clear this horrendous, well, it's shame, right? This
Yeah.
horrendous shame, this awful thing that happened, this horrendous accident.
Mm.
um, and the parents got in touch, and then there'd not been any contact. She'd just gone off and you know lived her life. And the parents got in touch and basically said to her, we never blamed you
Yeah.
for our daughter's death. We know it was an accident. It was not your fault. And 30 years later, she heard what she needed to hear.
Mm.
And that, for me, like, that was powerful, like witnessing
Mm.
that whole thing. And I mean, I've not spoken to her for a while, actually, but
Mm.
it might be worth checking in with her. But I know that that was exactly what needed to happen for her to complete the loop.
Yeah. And that was all
um,
from sharing her story, putting herself out there, exposing herself, and them to hear her story and then to contact her. What a gift they gave her. That's
yeah,
absolutely beautiful, that story.
I mean,
So,
there were other people that weren't happy with her sharing her story, and I think that's the other
mm,
thing. There's always there's two sides to it. And she, there were the haters, there were other family members that were saying you shouldn't be talking about this, but
mm,
the people she really needed to hear from, they arrived, and they
mm.
gave her peace.
Yeah, what a beautiful
They all had
gift.
peace. Yeah, it was a
Mm,
beautiful thing to witness.
yeah. So, can you share a quote or a mantra that inspires you?
It's a Disney one, actually. It's
Yeah.
have courage and be kind,
Yep.
effectively. Have courage, share and show up, and be kind, because you don't know what other people's stories are playing out.
Yeah.
That's kind of where
Absolutely.
it's come from.
Absolutely. Kindness is the only way. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And do you also have a daily practice that helps you stay grounded?
Daily practice, I move my body,
Yeah.
however that feels, whether that's walking in the woods, riding my bike, because I've just removed an old story of mine around bike riding. I fell off my bike in my teens and never got back on one. And I got one for my 48th birthday, so I've been bike riding.
Have you fallen off?
No, no, no.
Good.
It's been brilliant, and I love it. It's so exhilarating. So just moving my
Yeah.
body, because that's where it all gets stuck. And I think we get so caught in our stuckness.
Yeah. And also being on a bike around in nature. So, win-win. Yeah. Great clearing.
100%.
Great clearing. So, Sarah, where can people connect with you, your books, or ISPR to learn more?
Okay, so I have a website. It's iamsarahlloyd.com. Um, all my PR services are listed there. I have a couple of books, Wake Up Mother and Connecting the Dots, on Amazon. And I also have the Shameless Stories podcast, which is on all the podcast platforms. You can find me on there.
Mm.
Thank you for having me.
No, you're welcome. And for someone listening today who feels stuck in your story, not your story, in their story, that isn't serving them, what would the first step they can take to shift it?
Write your story down.
Mm,
Write it down. Like I do a practice where we talk about sliding door moments,
mm,
uh, and sit with it, tune in to the sliding door moments where you perhaps went left instead of right.
mm,
uh, my sliding door moment was to, instead of going to the doctors, it was going to a holistic practitioner,
yeah.
and that's what led me down this path. I could have gone a very different route.
Mm,
um so yeah, it's an opportunity just to tune in, like, what were your sliding door moments 5 years ago, 10 years
mm,
ago, a week ago? What have you done differently, and how can you celebrate that?
mm. Excellent. Well, thank you, Sarah, for reminding us that storytelling isn't just about being seen, it's about being free. Your journey shows us the beauty of stepping away from the old, choosing a new path, and sharing our voice from a place of truth. So, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. To everyone listening, your story matters. It's not about perfection, it's about presence. And when you share it from a place of power and healing, you not only change your life, but you inspire others to do the same. This is Positive Vibes with Nicki Dennis. Until next time, keep living your story, keep sharing your truth, and keep shining your light. Sending you all love and positive vibes. Bye for now. And thank you again. Thank you. That was great. Yeah, that
Thank you.
was really
Wow.
good.
It's so funny because I'm often the one that's reflecting.
Ah,